made it.
Hello again. I am your AI co-host, and welcome to 3reate. 3reate is a podcast focused on the process of doing and the process of novel invention, all from the foundation of creativity. Each month will bring you no more than 5 episodes through the lens of art, science, and/or technology. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. We pick up right after Andrew's tales from last week's episode, The Most Bizarre City Block in America and Goblin Macbeth. Today, Andrew and Nathan explore why validating your idea before you build is the key to success. Drawing on personal experience and concepts like the mom test and the innovator's dilemma, they break down the delicate dance of building something new. The conversation covers the challenge of getting honest user feedback, the pitfalls of the attention economy, and the elusive nature of true product-market fit. This isn't a get-rich-quick playbook. It's a realistic look at the uncomfortable, messy, and ultimately rewarding process of building something people actually want. And now, the humans.
So we were talking before, I've been trying to get a little bit more involved in the entrepreneurial scene. And both of us have had entrepreneurial experiences, and we get along well because I think we think similarly in terms of how to approach entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship has evolved over the years.
What I like to call violent agreement.
Yes. But I think entrepreneurship has evolved over years, especially as technology has evolved. And there are things that you can do now that give you a better chance of success at entrepreneurship because Lord knows everybody needs a better chance at entrepreneurship if you're going into it. Getting into the entrepreneurial space and hearing people's pitches on different ideas, I was actually very interested to hear that many of them were still thinking along the terms of like build it and it will come. And both of us are, I wouldn't say vehemently against the idea, but I prefer to try and work smart if you can. So don't just build things and hope that people will come. Validate what you're trying to build before you actually go and build it out in full. And there are variations to it. But with technology nowadays, you can move quick with the validation and you'll still have to build things. But the idea is build the minimum thing you need to validate any idea and then test it, get user feedback, get customer feedback ideally, because ultimately they're going to be the ones paying for whatever it is that you build.
Hopefully.
And then, you iterate on that, right? So there are nuances, right? You don't want to also end up building for a specific niche. You do need to sort of gauge the size of your market. But I think in general, it's good to know that there are different approaches now rather than just jumping right into entrepreneurship, not knowing what you're doing, building something because you think it's a good idea, and then possibly spending a lot of time and money trying to do so.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a way for us to talk about it because we haven't specifically talked about this, but we thought that the audience might be interested in this kind of stuff. And if not, it's good to know.
Yeah,
right?
No, I agree. It's like the hardest part of building anything. And I would say it's probably a full cast. But
we touch upon it here and there. I think we mentioned a few things about this concept. But it's not just entrepreneurship. It's also like product ownership.
Maybe I'll cut the first part or like release it separately.
The Macbeth episode of the Shakespeare.
It was totally like fucking tangent. But there is no wrong way to go about it. The thing I think that people get hung up on is like they think they have a brilliant idea, and maybe they do, but if other people don't want to buy it or aren't willing to buy it, then it doesn't matter. And unless you're trying to put out a charity app, then I guess ignore everything I'm about to say. But most people are trying to make an app for money, or a company is trying to make an app for money. If you have a project, you just want to put out the world's best drink builder app or whatever, cool, do it. But if you're actually trying to build a true product, which means people are going to actually give you money for it, then you have to go about, it's a weird, delicate dance of understanding what people may or may not want, and then building also what you think needs to happen. And it's like, I used this earlier today, actually. of the Henry Ford quote. It's always misattributed. I never said it, but it's like if people asked me for what they wanted, they
wanted faster horses.
Yeah, they'd ask me to build faster horses and not cars. And of course, Henry Ford was the first person to really popularize, mass produce the automobile. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, that's true. That's like part of the innovator's dilemma is if you're really trying to build something, well, I guess maybe easier. If you're trying to build the world's best calculator app, there's a bunch of calculators already out there. You can build a lot of the assumptions or the needs are already kind of baked into what a calculator is, and you can kind of put a spin on that, but it's pretty well understood. If you're trying to build some other sort of app or some other sort of software that either isn't already existing in a vertical, or you're trying to conquer a part of a vertical, which is, I would argue, how you build a good company or you solve real problems and make money. Mm-hmm. You don't often know what you're doing is right. You get a lot of mixed signals, like the book, The Mom Test. I think we've talked a little bit about it. It's a fantastic example from an engineering perspective on how to start a company and deal with people giving you false signals, because everybody wants... I break it down in a few ways. A lot of people close to you are going to try to support you. And if they're not, then they're probably not good people to have around you. And so they'll give you false signals of, oh yeah, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard. You should build that. And so you're like, great, I'm going to go build it. All these people told me how brilliant I am or how great the idea is, or they would totally use it. And then you build it and they don't use it.
Yep.
Or they don't want it, or it doesn't fill the need that they want.
They're not willing to pay for it. Yeah.
And that's the other thing is, will they use it for free? Maybe. Will they pay for it? Almost probably.
Will they pay for it? And then there's like the business sense of like, are they paying less than what it costs you to make?
Exactly. Yeah. So are you building it at a loss, right? Maybe if it costs you $5 to make and you're selling it for $1, like sure, you have a product market fit, but now you have a price pointing problem, you have a business problem. Yeah. And so when it comes to building, good software, it's really, really, really challenging to do. And you need oftentimes a lot of different perspectives. And so like when I build, I'm really working closely with designers, user experience people who can really help break down the needs of users, help decontextualize the it would be nice ifs into this is the problem I'm trying to solve. And I think so much feedback comes from, wouldn't it be nice? It would be cool. What if? And sure, all of those things could be valid, but you have to really come down to what outcome are you trying to drive and what problems are you trying to solve for the person or for the whatever the software is supposed to be doing. That's how you build good software. If you want to just make a lot of fucking money, there's all sorts of other mechanisms, and
there are ways.
And those are like ad models, right? So it's like maybe you have a game or something and it's fun, but the problem you're trying to solve is not providing entertainment. The problem you're actually trying to solve is how do I keep people in my game and make money from them? Yeah. And so you have a lot of mechanics for making things so hard that you have to buy something in the game to pass, or making things so complex and time consuming that it's easier or faster for you to buy something in the game or sell ads in the game, or like there's all sorts of different ways there.
You could broaden that out to just the attention market in general.
Yeah.
Just keeping someone's attention on a platform.
And a lot of software has come to that, which is why I don't work in Silicon Valley anymore. Mm-hmm. And when I did, it wasn't on that problem.
Yeah.
It became kind of that, which is partly why I'm not there anymore.
I wonder if we need like a backstory, Andrew's backstory.
It'd be hard.
You don't know where you came from.
I don't know where I came from.
You have amnesia.
I've always existed. But yeah, so the attention market is really where apps have become, because that's where the money is, because you can advertise, and that's like the primary driver of this, partly because people don't want to buy stuff and people don't want to pay for stuff. And so you give people the problem solved for free, in quotes, but the way you make money is selling information about that person to an advertiser who then hopes you click on their thing or buys their product. And a lot of people are okay with that. I'm personally not. I think it's incentivizing the wrong things. You're not getting software that's designed. If the best software in the world was something you interacted with 3 minutes a day, but the only way to make it work was to keep you in it for an hour and sell ads, that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get the thing that gets you whatever done in 3 minutes.
Yeah, and perhaps we bookmark this for another conversation because I think it is a very interesting one. But we've talked about it too, the idea of the ad model, effectively like the discovery problem. If you're a brand new product, how do you get out there? How do you get people to know about it? And unfortunately, the only mechanism right now is through advertisement.
That's growth. Yes and no. Let's talk about that next time because I think
I was gonna,
how to grow,
bookmark it.
and that's probably harder than product market fit because you can get product market fit really easily. You get 100 users, arguably a product market fit. Can you grow to 200 users, or can you grow to 1,000 users, or can you grow to 10 million users? That's a much different scaling and growth. And like, I would argue that's the hardest part is to take something that you kind of have a product market fit in, or you do have a product market fit, and actually make it sustainable. Because for most people building most things, 100 people isn't paying the bills. Like maybe it pays for the app. Like we've talked about, like that was kind of where my app was, where the amount of users I had was actually paying the bills, quote unquote, for the infrastructure.
Just to let it run. Yeah.
But I wasn't making money. Well, I was technically making profit, but like not, well, actually, no, I wasn't. It was basically breaking even. And I was like, should I grow it? I think we talked a little bit about that. I decided ultimately not to because I wasn't passionate about it. And I didn't think there was a big enough market.
Yeah,
how you kill a productive app or some fucking thing, in the past.
I've had conversations with people about product market fit in general. I think it is an ambiguous term, but we can make some definitions and talk more about growth and getting your product up there. But I'm taking it back to building the right things. I think as an engineer, I see it a lot too, where engineers just kind of want to build stuff, and they often have a little bit of pride in whatever it is that they're building, or maybe there's a little bit of ego that they're building the right things, and hearing no or hearing your thing doesn't work is kind of a punch to the ego. But you sort of have to overcome that. And what you were saying before about building solutions to problems that people actually have, I think is the right way to approach it. And I see this a lot in technology. When a new technology comes out, people are like, oh, virtual reality is going to solve all your problems. Oh, blockchain is going to solve all your problems. Right? But these are solutions looking for the problem.
100%.
And obviously we have solutions that actually do solve the problems that people have. So not to say that those types of technologies can't be solutions. It's just people tend to want to fit them into holes in which they don't fit. And they try and force it.
And it's really easy to be dishonest with yourself in that you're like, oh, I'm really excited about virtual reality. And wouldn't it be cool if, or, I'm using the phrases intentionally because a lot of times you'll literally get that verbatim.
That's the first, exactly. Yep. You talk to people and that's the first thing you hear.
Or
it'd be nice if it did this, or it'd be cool if it did that.
Yeah. And sometimes sometimes brainstorming is good and you need to do that on the team. What I find a lot of times though is it's engineering specifically loves to ideate and hypothesize, and it's fun and it's challenging, and you kind of create these problems and you create solutions to create more problems, and it's really easy to get away from the core feature set, or you get scope creep. But there is no like magic bullet for this. Because you can get stellar feedback. It can be totally accurate, totally right. You do it and it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that can be for a number of reasons. So you get a lot of, I think a lot of people talk about product market fit. There's a lot of false signals in there. And that's where it like, I always tell my teams that we're data informed and not data driven, because data can give you false signals. It's just data. How you interpret that data is matters. But again, it's like, if you're trying to build an automobile and no one's conceived of an automobile, how do you measure how successful your automobile is? Because no one really knows what it should do. Should it go 10 miles an hour? Should it go 100 miles an hour? And so a lot of engineers are hearing like, wow, what are the requirements? It's like 4 wheels and go fast. Why can't? Well, how do I know that I'm done? Right? How do I know that I delivered that? Well, it has 4 wheels, but what is fast? Well, it's relative to the driver. And maybe you build a 4-wheel thing that goes fast, and then you find out, well, it's really bumpy when people ride. So the really most important thing now is like, it's not bumpy when you're going over bumps. Well, that's a totally different set of requirements. It's a totally different thing. Yeah, it's a new feature. We're going to add suspension. We're going to add cushion seats. We're going to, maybe change the tires. Maybe you build a whole different product because,
And you put treads, not wheels.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And that's where it gets really murky. And we talk a lot about innovation. And if you're really trying to solve novel problems, there typically is no clear-cut answers. Experimentation is very difficult. And sometimes you experiment, you get the data and you fail, or the experiment is showing that it's not giving you the signal that you expect, but that also doesn't mean you're wrong.
Exactly.
If you've ever listened to people who have built companies or ever talked to people or built companies yourself, you'll know that like there's kind of a gut feel to it. There's also just a kind of an irrational optimism. And then we celebrate the people that were right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the cold, hard truth of a lot of this stuff is it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of timing. It's a lot of timing. Mm-hmm. There's taste. I think something people don't talk a lot about taste in software, but there's a aesthetic coefficient. Is it pleasant to use? Because even if you have the most brilliant solution to a problem and everybody wants to buy it, if it sucks, it's hard to use. A lot of people, you're not going to do it. Anybody who works in a business who has like internal build applications is probably like, it sucks, I have to use it. It's like, exactly, you have to use it. Yeah. Right? If the world's worst software was the one thing you had to do to get paid, to get your paycheck, and you had to go through 20 hours of fucking terrible software to get paid, you're probably going to do it. Yeah. But when it comes to optional spend or whatever, so I think, I don't know, I'm kind of feel like I'm just tangenty today.
I mean, I think you're making very good points. This idea of there's so many more things we don't know out there than we do. So when people tend to believe that they know what the right course of action is, chances are they're wrong. Yeah. But the way to start turning those unknowns into known unknowns is to start doing stuff. A little bit of inspires towards action, right? You sort of do need to experiment. And now it's, strangely enough, more easy than ever to start building things and testing things out.
And I think that's part of the problem. Yeah. Right? Is it's so easy now to build and prototype. To go down the train.
Yeah, that you want to keep going.
You're like, this is brilliant and it's great and it's the coolest thing ever. And like maybe but
good point.
You used to have to like really sit down and plan with the team because you're going to build some software and it's going to be thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's expensive. And you're not wanting to place a bet on something that might not pan out. So you had to do a lot more research up front. Now you can spin up, what would cost thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars 10 years ago in a few minutes with a LLM and, some coding chops and
vibe coding. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's good. But then, so it's interesting. You're talking, and I'm wondering if it would be helpful to like talk through like, some of the methods that I employ to kind of break through that. Of like product market fit problems, because I feel like a lot of people talk about it in terms of it's really obvious. Well, if it's really obvious, you're making a fuck ton of money and you have so many people downloading your app or signing up that you can't possibly keep up. That's a wonderful problem to have, and it's very rare.
Yeah.
And will it last is a big question. Usually it doesn't. So like I think when you're doing novel build, getting the right problems is hard, but that's easier done than said, maybe too. So how do I do that? I get multiple perspectives from users. So not just one person or one type of user, try to identify
personas.
Yeah. I don't love personas too much. People get too attached to it, but
they're useful, but also, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to chuck it all because it's a lot of, I think my process is just gut and experience, and you just can't teach or train that. You just have to learn it. But yeah, so diverse opinions from your users or potential users or adjacent users too, to really start to rough out where does it break down.
Define what an adjacent user is.
Yeah, like someone who might not be a primary user but could use it or might benefit from it, or if you're building something really complicated that might be able to use the software for a part of a thing, where they're not really your primary user, but they could use it. And like, I think those people are really important because they're your growth vector. You're also going to be providing value to them, but you don't want to focus all your time and energy on them. You want to acknowledge that there's other people who are going to use stuff in ways that you don't understand. So yeah, getting diverse opinions and perspectives. When I'm talking to people about this stuff, I often let people lead with solutions, which is the absolute worst thing you can do. But what I'll do is I will walk them back or ask a series of questions. Sometimes it becomes an interview of trying to get to the root cause of like what problem that they think they're solving, without necessarily asking them like, what problem do you think you're solving?
Yeah, you usually don't want to do that,
right?
Because then they sort of try and make something up, or
or
people hallucinate,
or they don't. Yeah, exactly, and they don't even know.
And you know, so really quickly, the thing about having people provide solutions, actually, I think is a good idea, because if they're providing a solution, you yourself, given the experience you have, can backtrack that into a problem, right? So it's like, it would be great if this were solved because I hate doing that.
Exactly.
And you know that part of the thing that they're referring to is part of the issue.
Exactly. And those can be false all the time. And it's not some silver bullet, but I think people really shy away from solutions. And it's like, well, no, like the customer is always right to some extent, because they're going to end up buying it from you. So even if the solution that they present you is not what you necessarily solve because it's not the right problem, oftentimes presenting it in the way that they expect is the magic solution.
Gives them something to think about, right?
Yeah.
That's also part of the innovator's dilemma, is when you're talking about an idea that people don't know what it looks like, just having some sort of scarecrow or an anchor of them seeing what that looks like helps them envision what it is that you're trying to describe to them.
So I'll talk to people about stuff, a lot of user interviews. I'm a natural interviewer, or like learn the skill. Like I have a fucking podcast. If you can't figure that out, I don't know how to make you better. I'm a bad coach.
Guess what helps being a good interviewer? You need curiosity.
And I lead with questions all the time. I ask leading questions, and that throws people sometimes, and it throws my team sometimes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I try not to ask leading questions, but you know, obviously we're all human.
You probably should
do it. Yeah.
I do it all the time. And like why I do that is I usually have a pretty good, I develop like a hypothesis very quickly, and I want to like rapidly prototype it in my head. And so I want to get information on it. And so I'll ask.
For those who aren't familiar, a leading question is when you phrase a question such that you're trying to get them to give you an answer that you're sort of expecting.
If you, what is the leading question? You know, why?
Far from like leading the witness in law, right? It's sort of far from that.
Why is soda, you know, your favorite beverage? And that's a leading question. A non-leading question would be like, what's your favorite beverage? Or like when you're thirsty, you know, what do you tend to go for? Something like that. Because you shouldn't ask leading questions, because you tend to get the answers you're looking for.
Yeah, the bias.
And it's also a little confrontational. Some people are not on that. People have different cultural. So it's there's nothing I say is going to be a rule. It's just kind of shades of gray, and I'll try to give it in context, because otherwise it just gets too heady and like existential. But I'll ask leading questions, and that's for me to like try to prove out a line of thinking. Because if someone reacts and they're like, "Nah, it's dumb," or like, "I would never do that," or "Why would I do that?" or whatever. Sometimes, you know, I let it go. Sometimes I push it a little harder, and that will help, you know, round out perspectives, prototype some stuff. Or I'll ask sometimes like really for down like kind of a line of thinking. I'll ask something like totally potentially like random seeming, because I'm thinking about something else and like I want to rule that out, or get some information on that, or I'll think of some other thing and I'll connect, you know, some kind of pathway. That can confuse people. It's not, again, this, I wouldn't recommend following this method, but you know, if it works, it works. It works for me. And then market research, domain research, obviously, if there's other people trying to solve the problems, or other software out there that might be helpful. Looking at kind of
do you ever observe workflows, like just watch people work without?
That's what I'm doing.
Like just fly on the wall kind of thing.
Yep, I have. Okay. I've done that a lot, especially any kind of B2B software, like internal software, is like actually watching the people do the work, and that's hard to do because they are aware.
Yeah, one, they're aware too,
and so they change their behavior.
They may have certain quote unquote clearance that you are not allowed to have, depending on what they're doing.
And so it's there's ways to go about that successfully. Also, again, subsample of one is not useful, so you got to do it with multiple people.
Yeah. And the idea behind watching someone work is that's their natural behavior, so you can sort of see if they encounter any snags, how they get around it. Like, are they doing some elaborate workarounds to get something done? And can it be done more effectively?
And I spend a lot of time, you know, once I get some data, ideating, prototyping myself, if that's sketching like an interface or thinking through, you know, how the infrastructure might work, or trying to focus on what I could see as like possible issues with the thing, or ways to do things maybe differently. So it's like if I'm going to upload a text document, asking the question, like, what's in the document that you're trying to upload? Oh, well, the address for my friend. Oh, well, is there another way to get the address? Or is there a way to just input your friend? Is there, so in trying to kind of what if it, and I think a lot of engineers get stuck here because it's really easy to what if yourself into fucking oblivion. And so you have to
what if yourself into building the world?
Yeah. So you have to be disciplined. And then I think you'll eventually come to some kind of conclusion, but then you have to go back and validate that conclusion.
Yeah.
So that's either building something as a prototype and getting people to use it or not. People not using something you build is a very strong signal. It's potentially wrong. Not necessarily, again, not black and white, but potentially. So I'll do that. Prototype. So eventually you get into prototyping, and I think that's the best way to do this. And again, building shit for the sake of building it, not a great strategy always, but I find it's getting it in front of your potential users, being able to get data from that, being able to talk to them about how they're using it, what their perceptions are, is really it's really easy to do that, and it's a lazy way to do it, but it works.
Yeah.
What that means, like what is done, or what is an MVP, a minimal viable product, or like what is hard. Good enough, that's a whole podcast, right? Because it makes it sound easy, but if you have the right idea but the wrong user experience, it's fucked. If you have the right user experience and the wrong execution, it's probably fucked. And it's really hard to disambiguate, did I just implement this wrong? Is the timing wrong? Yeah. Is it too early to market, too late to market? Yeah. You're solving the right problem in the wrong way, all those kind of things. And so it's really hard to know that in the moment. And again, I seek the validation of, are people using it? How much are they using it? Are they using it as we intended? Or are they doing it in different ways? If they're not using it, again, maybe it's still not wrong. It just might be a number of things to check. And like, how do you know if you've succeeded or failed? A lot of times it's you run out of money. That's why a lot of startups fail, right? You failed because you couldn't get it right.
You couldn't figure it out before time ran out. Yeah.
Yep. And again, a lot of times the successful companies are the people who can get the most money to run the longest. And if you get enough smart people working on stuff, eventually you'll figure out something. Yeah. Which is kind of shitty advice, I guess, but it's also like,
I was going to say that was actually very profound in a very short amount. It's I think you highlighted it. If you have the right people, you'll figure something out effectively, right? And that's a lot of the approach that VCs take is not only the idea, but oftentimes they're investing in the people, the talent.
No, exactly. And that's why like my approach, I don't know if we talked too deeply about it, but my approach to product management is like light on detail, pretty solid on like measurement of success. Like, how do we know we succeeded? Yeah. It's usually people use it, and that really pisses engineers off sometimes. But I'm like, if people aren't using it, we're doing it wrong. I don't know what to tell you. What's going to make them use it? Getting it in front of them and understanding why they're not using it or why they are using it, right? Because it's like, otherwise you're just supposing, like, this doesn't work in every industry and in every setting, but in a startup mode kind of idea, the worst thing you can do is go into design UX hell of supposing things may or may not work, tweaking interfaces that no customer's even seeing, A/B testing at an early phase, useless, because you don't have an A. You don't have a standard to benchmark against. A/B versus. So a lot of these tools that you'll hear about in big companies or mature companies, they work really great, and they are needed in certain instances, and there are certain times in an early stage product you would use them. Most of the time, no, you're still trying to find that fit. But getting smart people to do stuff, it's surprisingly hard sometimes. But that literally, it's like, can you build enough stuff fast enough and get it in front of people to understand if it's working is one of the hardest things I find with a team, because it's always, I think it's really uncomfortable. It forces you to be creative. It forces you to probably do a lot of mental thought and exercise to try to understand, like, what's the most clever way I can get this out without having to sit here and write 10 hours of code. I have 2 hours of code to write, and I have 20 minutes to do it. And so there's a lot of constraints where it's really nice to just get this 80-page spec that you can just build exactly the way that it was told. And then if it doesn't work, you also get absolved of fucking up, right? You're like, well, I built the spec.
I did it the way you told me to.
So I think it requires a lot of trust in teams too. And that's something that I think a lot of teams will have, but depending on how the company is structured, you start running into like, yeah, we trust it or you, but, and then whatever the but is, it doesn't matter. So it's like you it's not that you don't not trust, it's that you don't have trust. It's like some weird, like everybody talks about trust as binary, and it kind of is, but it's much more of like a spectrum and a circumstance. It's like, I might trust you to drive me home, but I might not trust you to fly me home.
I might trust an autonomous vehicle if there's a driver right next to the wheel,
right?
But I might not trust the autonomous vehicle if there's no driver next to the wheel.
Yeah, and that's something I struggle with sometimes too. Is it you get into, it's like a how you get started problem on my product teams, because
cold start.
Because it's like once it gets running, it works. The flywheel is miraculous. I have receipts to back it up. But it's getting started, getting people out of their own head, getting them the permission to fail, keeping the permission to fail, not failing so much that you've sunk the company or sunk the bet, and getting, it's in a big company or something, alignment on that is very difficult, because everybody thinks software is easy, or it's, we just have to do what the customer says and then they'll buy it or they'll build it. And that's a fallacy, but it's really easy to do that fallacy, because then we just say, oh, we did it wrong. We all agree because we did what the customer said, then we move on. Big company, you can do that quite a bit. Small company, you no longer have a company.
Yeah. And you have a consulting service.
Or you're just building, widget kind of shit, and it doesn't really do what people need it to, but it kind of brings in people for a market, and you never really, get out of orbit, so to speak. And like maybe the company puts along and you make money and you lay off people here and there and you get, and that's what you want to do. Cool. But I think a lot of people want a sustainable company that grows. And to do that, you have to kind of run this innovation cycle. At least the best way I know how to do it is that. And again, it's smart people doing smart things in as little a time as possible, which sounds really easy, but it's phenomenally challenging. And once you get it going, it's really hard to flywheel that.
It's really hard to keep going. Yeah.
The one-hit wonder thing, we've talked about that a lot. And to flywheel something, so like if you get something spinning, it's like, will the momentum of it spinning continue to keep it spinning? We should define flywheel, yes. And it's really easy to get the quarter spinning or whatever you're doing, and then eventually gravity is going to take over and it's going to collapse it. And the idea of a flywheel in a software company is that the flywheel just keeps going. And it keeps printing money, it keeps bringing in users, it keeps driving value, and then you build another one, and then you've got, you're in the top 1% of companies at that point. If you got two flywheels going, like that's amazing. Yeah. But getting alignment on that kind of stuff, and how big is the flywheel? Again, if you're flywheel in 100 users, cool. Is that going to be a sustainable company? Probably not. Unless you're in some weird niche industry where you're making a fuck ton of money from a lot of enterprise,
people, right? 100 your customers are the 100 biggest enterprises.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what I like about what you described is like I think there was like some undertone or context around product teams or in a larger organization. That's your approach. But I think that also works if you're net new, you're starting an entrepreneurial venture. It's the same process, right? You're trying to understand what your users would be, what they would do, if you can get information from them to determine the direction that you want to head in.
Yep.
So it's still this idea of collecting information and using that to direct your action, as opposed to just shoveling something in and saying, or even taking your product to people and saying, use this, and tell me what it is.
Yeah, so it's a lot of false signals, how to break through it. There's no right way. You can employ every strategy I said and still fail.
Taking other people's playbooks doesn't always work.
Yeah, and I would say, like, generally speaking, you should be very uncomfortable with the state of where you're at.
I was going to say life, but yeah.
Yeah, you should be really uncomfortable that you're doing the right thing. You should always be questioning what you're doing. And I think the maturity of that skill set is knowing when to pull the cord, so to speak, to say, I'm uncomfortable. This isn't working. We need to stop. And I'm uncomfortable. This doesn't seem like it's working. What can we do next? But people tend to get, it's not necessarily a binary, but people get into one of those binaries. We have to just keep trying. We have to keep trying. We have to keep trying. And then you fail, or we have to keep changing, pivot. Well, if you keep pivoting and you hit, you don't ever really know because you've pivoted too fast.
Yeah.
And so part of it's knowing the market, part of it's knowing like what have similar companies done. But I think a lot of it just comes down to gut and like getting lucky and getting those big signals. But if not, constantly taking the right kind of bets with the right, I think experimentation with a known outcome, number one, right? You have to set an outcome. If you want to get 100 users, your experiment is how do I get 100 users? If you don't get 100 users, why didn't I get 100 users?
Sure.
And then you have to decide what have we kind of agreed to, or what have we think? How do we test that now? Goal is still 100 users. Okay, we need to make the login page faster. It's too slow. Okay. Any more users sign up? Right? No. Okay. Do people know about it? How do we get the word out? Do we spend money on advertising? Okay, we spent money on advertising. How do we know the advertising worked? So spend money on advertising is the natural path. We just need to advertise. Okay, great. How do you know that you got a return? Like this business 101 shit, but that's mostly product. And it's all really easy shit to say and do, but it's so rare that companies are disciplined enough to do it. And I think a lot of it comes down to nobody really wants to fail or feel failure. And so they do all of these things to prevent, well, if we don't actually establish a way to get understanding if advertising worked, then we won't really know. And we'll just call it that it worked because if more users sign up.
It was a relative success.
And it's a hard problem. Like advertising spend value. Like I've been on record. I think advertising is bullshit, but like people are convinced that it's not. But how do you know that? You can talk to people and say, how did you find out about us? Oh, the ad. Okay, well, maybe it worked. But is that really what motivated you to join? Or was it your buddy who actually told you and you're like, oh yeah, I heard about the ad. I don't know. So you never really know, right? And that's part of the thing is even with all the data, and a lot of teams get stoked in that too, is we just need more data. Or we have all this data, but it doesn't, sometimes it's not clear. And that's where you have to take an experience informed decision and try a new thing. And that a lot of teams have a hard time, especially when you have kind of some momentum going, but it's not fast enough, or you're not seeing, it's like if you're adding 3 users a week consistently, that's awesome. But if you want to grow, you need a way to add 10 users a week.
10 users, right.
Or 50 users a week, or 50 users on Monday, and then next week is 3 or something. You have to figure out a way to like break, a pattern. So anyway, I don't know. I hope these are helpful for people because anyone who claims to have some fucking magic formula doesn't. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And if it was that easy, everybody would follow the formula and we would all have billion-dollar businesses and be making money hand over fist. And, it's not that easy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key to highlight is there are lots of unknowns out there. And this idea of experimentation or to build the experience, the gut, you kind of have to learn through the experience. Yep. These types of things you don't read in a book and just all of a sudden say, oh, I got it. It
helps,
go through.
But it's not the only piece. And there's nothing is better than trying and doing. Mm-hmm. And you either succeed or you fail. And if you fail, try again. Figure out why you failed. And sometimes you don't know.
Learn from that.
Right? Yeah. I put an app out in the App Store. It didn't work. Okay, well, maybe try another one. Try something different. Try a totally different idea. Yeah. Try a variation of that idea, right? Like, don't just try it once and stop, because that's 99% of people, and they will never be successful in entrepreneurship, because I feel like I've heard it said like entrepreneurship is the insanity of just trying so many things. Eventually you just like probability hits and you get lucky. To some extent, that's kind of true, right?
Yeah, you could say, I mean, and that's kind of the idea behind the rapid iteration. It's like trying enough things that the 0.0001% chance actually hits.
Yeah. Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Call your apprentice today.
Learn all of that in just 20 minutes by taking an apprentice course.
I do own apprentor.com.
Apprenticeship.
Something AI. Maybe.
Yeah.
I have too many AI projects. I need an AI to manage my AI projects and then an AI to build my AI projects for me.
Hey, we're going to get to that world. It's AI all the way down, man.
I mean, honestly, we're kind of already there. It's just not robust. It works. Right. Totally works. I have so many arguments that people are like, oh, it doesn't work at all. I'm like, no, it does. Yeah. You just have to know how to use it right, and you still have to use your brain. But the day is coming where you won't have to use much of your brain, and then eventually probably it'll be good enough where most of the time it'll just work.
That's yet another topic we'll have to bookmark.
Can't wait for all the fart apps. AI is going to discover fart apps. All right. See you next time.
All right. Well, cool. Take care, man.
You can find us at 3reate.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. Thanks for listening.